Supporters, club members, track and field fans, welcome to special live edition of Track Talk from Tokyo. 2025 World's track action is at least over. I think the field events may still be going on. Do we know if the discus is over, John?
The discus had not even started when we left the stadium, so I believe that is still ongoing.
Discus fans, tell us in the chat what's happening.
We're in the final round right now.
Okay.
Nicholas Lechner, the guy who is the world record holder who's never won NCAAs, is currently in the lead.
He was the betting favorite, never won NCAAs. He's going to Oregon. He's transferring him. But anyways, the Worlds are over. We loved it. And if you're an American fan, you had to wait a long time for that first mid-deer distance medal, but boy, was it worth it. Cole M.F. Hocker gets it done. He comes from farther back than Jordy Beamish. 12th at the bell, 52.62. One of the greatest last laps in a sub-13 race ever. Wins it in 12.58. Would he have won the 1500? We'll never know, but that was sweet vindication for Cole. Unbelievable race. Isaac Kimeli second. Jimmy Gressier comes through yet again. Kai Robinson is fourth. And how about, it was a wonderful race for Mr. Jonathan Gold, the smartest working man in journalism, folks. He predicted that 5,000, 1, 2, 3 last night. And he said also, watch out for Kai Robinson. It wouldn't shock me if he won it. And he was fourth. So crazy prediction by John. I used to refer to John as the hardest working man in journalism, but that's now me, Robert Johnson, folks. I got up early. I said I wasn't going to do it. I wanted to see a race rerun, and I saw a race rerun this morning. They reran the 4x4 from last night. This morning, the U.S. got into the final, and there's some controversy to talk about there, folks. The slow leg, the guy that had the trouble getting the baton around yesterday, he appears to be coached by his personal coach, is the relay coach. USATF says there's nothing wrong about that conflict of interest. When I asked him about it, he said, well, prove it. There's no proof of that. But
well, there is a video of him doing a workout.
So we'll talk about that. But the bigger story is one that basically I'm breaking here in Tokyo. The men's 4x4 was a thriller. The U.S. team barely gets into the final, but they brought it in the final. They have the lead. Rai Benjamin, you have the 400 hurdle champ versus the open 400 champ of Botswana. Benjamin gets the stick in the lead. He's got it all the way to the finish. It looks like he's pulling away with about 50 meters left, and then all of a sudden the Botswana guy comes back and steals it. And then Benjamin tells me, hey, man, I had a pretty late night out last night. I thought we were done. I thought the Worlds was over. And I basically thought he was implying he was out having a wild night. And then I followed up on the question, and he basically confirmed, yes, it was a pretty late night out. So stunning.
Chaos in the 800 meters. Lilian Odira of Kenya PRs by almost 2 seconds. Top 3 women all break 154. Keely Hodgkinson runs 154 and finishes third. Georgia Hunter Bell medals for the second year in a row, silver. And then the U.S. relays, apart from the men's 4x4, where I would say they were the underdogs to Botswana based on the talent on each team, the American relay squads were fantastic. They swept the 4x4, the 4x1s. They won the women's 4x4 in dominant fashion, and they won the mixed relay at the start of the meet. So, like Robert said, there were some questions perhaps about the composition of the men's 4x4 prelims team, but in the end, the results, 4 golds and a silver, that's about as good as you could ask for given the personnel they had on hand. So, very successful meet for the U.S. relays.
This is our last show in Tokyo. 13-hour difference between here and East Coast. I think it's a 16-hour difference between San Francisco, where Weldon now is. I'm getting on a plane, trying to fall asleep. I wish I brought AGZ with me. It's a nighttime drink designed to support restful, restorative sleep. They've been sponsoring the second half of Worlds for us. It's formulated to support your body's natural rhythm, not override it, folks. Check it out. AGZ. AGZ. If you like the AG1 supplements, you're probably going to like this same company. All right.
And we had a clutch end to the discus. I just saw it on the CIS while we were doing the intro, Robert. Daniel Stahl of Sweden, on his final attempt, vaults into the lead, 70 meters, 70.47. Alekna had the lead at 67.84. Just a huge throw very, very clutch for Stahl to win the title. And now the World Athletics Championships are in the books.
Right as we start. So now the masses will be turning off their TVs worldwide and coming to listen to this show. By the way, I've got to push a button to go live here on Instagram.
All right. Well, let's start with this 5,000 meter final. Cole Hocker, he was already a U.S. distance running legend. You win the Olympic 1,500 meter final, you're going to be a legend forever. But to go 1,500 gold, 5,000 gold in back-to-back years, I mean, he's really moving up the charts in terms of one of the greatest American distance runners in history. These two, like, coming out of college, obviously he was a very talented collegian, but he misses the team in 2022 due to injury. He finishes 7th. I mean, we got to remember, Robert, the end of the 2023 season, it seemed like Yared Nuguse had surpassed this guy. Nuguse had been the U.S. champion 2023. He beat Hocker at Worlds. He ran 3:43 in the mile. We thought, okay, Hocker, was great in college. Nuguse had moved by him. Turns out Hocker had been dealing with these injuries. He's been healthy the last 2 years, and he has been sensational when it matters the most. He has only won 5 races the last 2 seasons. He's raced a fair amount outdoors. These are outdoors victories. One of them was the Wake Forest Invitational last year in the 5,000. He was the only finisher in that race, so I don't know if you even count that as a victory. His other 4 wins: Olympic Trials 1,500, Olympic 1,500, USA's 5K, World Championship 5K. He said all year, I'll be there when it matters. I trust my process. I'm going to make it count. He did. He backed up all the talk. And I know he got DQ'd in the 1,500, and he felt like he was robbed of that opportunity. He said, he had a badass quote about it, essentially. He said, maybe not the performances people expected from the Olympic champion in the build-up, but I knew I was in the best shape of my life going into this championship. Not to have that opportunity in the 1,500 really hurt. And so then I just had to recalibrate and think, how do I redeem that? And there was only one answer. He did it. It's gold in the 5K.
Look, Cole Hocker 1, doubters 0 for the rest, forever, for eternity. Maybe Rose Runner says his legendary career is just getting started. Well, it's a hell of a career already. It's just getting started. But look, the guy deserves so much credit. First of all, just it can be hard to achieve success. All you can do is fail. And sometimes you're like, okay, I won the 1,500, I got to win it again. If you don't win, it's a disaster. Him going for the 5,000 as well. I mean, he tried to get it last year, didn't even make the team, but was really all in on it, talking a lot about it. Grand Slam track and stuff like that. I think it was smart. And then he comes through and does it. So just sensational. But people saying, like all summer long, when he was getting spanked in Grand Slam track, and people were saying, like, who's the favorite for Worlds? You and I both kept saying, well, we think Cole Hocker deserves to be the favorite. He won last year. He's got a 6.66 kick, and he can peak well. Now, Josh Kirk has historically peaked very well and was winning those Grand Slam tracks, and he got hurt, so we didn't get to see. Nuguse didn't make the team, but the kick tonight was legendary, and it was unreal. So a lot of people probably listening now, even live, didn't watch this race live because it was early on the West Coast. It was early in the U.S. And right when the gun goes off, Cole goes to the front, but it wasn't fast. For that first part, he was trying to slow it down. He told us, he's like,
well, he tried to do the same thing he did at USA's. He went to the front. He kept it, he wasn't walking, but it was enough that if you wanted to pass him, you had to make an actual move. He was kind of hoping to do the same thing tonight. Turns out the other Americans had different plans. Nico Young and Grant Fisher actually take it and start picking up the pace. And what did they hit 1,600 in here, Robert? I'm just trying to look up. They were 4:13 at 1,600. And then Hagos Gebrewet gets involved, and he starts helping the pace. But then it starts bunching up again. They slow from running 61, 62s to 64s and 65s. It had been single file, but with a mile to go, it was starting to bunch up in a pack. And Cole Hocker had not been dropped. Isaac Kimeli, Jimmy Gressier, the big kickers, none of them had been dropped. So at that point, I'm like, okay, this is dangerous that Cole Hocker is still there. But even late in the race, Robert, he wasn't really worried about his position at all. I think his main thing was he told me, was just be there with 800 to go. If you're there with 800 to go, you can outkick any of these guys. And
right. I mean, the normal rule is positioning. That doesn't apply to Cole Hocker. Right before I flew over here, I watched USA's. He was so far back at the bell. He was 7th, and he did it. I guess you could say Jordy Beamish did it. Like, people who have really sick kicks like him and Beamish can be so far back. It's wild. But it's actually weird because this race had this crazy last lap. First half was 63 was 632. So they were. It was fun. I mean, this was a really fun race. We had Fisher go to the front. We had Young going to the front. They told us afterwards, yeah, we talked about it. It wasn't that formal, but we want to get it going. And, there was 413 at 1600, 62. And I spent, instead of enjoying the race, I was really, I hope everyone's joining Supporters Club today. Let's run.com/ subscribe. Instead of watching the race, I'm splitting it on my phone and typing in the splits because I know people are waking up on the West Coast who didn't watch the race. I guess they could have. There's only an hour for the videos not up online, but I wanted people to be able to figure out what was happening. 62, 10. It was 10 flat. 64 to 32. So 823 at 2 miles, and then that's when it slowed down really right around 3K, and because they had the 64 from 2800 to 3200. People can talk about pushing the pace, John, but it's very hard to push it around 3K. Then it slowed down, and then you had the big last lap. But what was fun was you had Jakob in the back, Ingebrigtsen, who was unbeatable in this event. He's in the back early on. I'm like, when it was kind of going in the 61s and 62s, at one point there was a little bit of gap. George Mills fell off. I'm like, is Ingebrigtsen going to fall out? No, not only does he not fall off, he gets up there, and all of a sudden,
he was leading with 2 laps to go. And I was looking, I was like, I just didn't think he was going to hold it. But for a second, you maybe allowed yourself to dream.
But can we give him some credit? Can we give Jakob some credit? He had the lead with 600 to go, and he made this race damn interesting. And Grant Fisher nailed it too. They asked him about it, and he's like, look, I give the guy a lot of respect for coming out here. He hasn't had a good season. This is his first race. He could have just, bagged it. Instead, he's not afraid to lose. So, life lesson, folks. It's okay to lose. Compete. This is your job. And so going into that lap, as I told people, I had 5,000 reasons to root on Belgium's
Isaac
Kimeli, who had smoked Fisher in one of the Diamond Leagues. His kicks looked insane in the prelims. I got him at 150 to 1. I put $75. It was gonna be $5,000 if he won this race. And I'm watching him. He was up front. He never got dropped. I'm like, this is great. His kick's insane. He was perfectly positioned. Gressier, perfectly positioned. Mahari had the lead. So this was golden for your boy Rojo. I said, Mahari, this kid's 18. He speaks perfect English. This could be the future. This could be the Gab of the 2030s and the 20s. This kid is amazing. He's got the lead. And, John, I'm sitting next to John, and 300 meters ago, John's like, look at Hocker. And I thought, my God, he's far back. But then if you're watching on YouTube, in America, you kind of lost track of Hocker on the TV. But then all of a sudden around 200, you see him move up. And you're probably thinking at that point, we know how this ends. And John's kept saying, just look at Hocker, look at Hocker, look at Hocker. I was wondering, because he was running that whole second lap wide. He was in lane 2 for a lot of it. And I was thinking, because I was kind of, to be honest, rooting for Kimeli to pull it off from a financial standpoint. And I was thinking, well, Hocker's come from so far back. Is it possible he gets past Kimeli and then Kimeli goes back on him? But no, he just slowly got him about 50 meters down the home stretch and closes off that 52 last lap. 12:58. Kimeli gets his first medal. Gressier gets his second medal of the championships. And then Kai Robinson was 4th. I think Nico Young was 6th in this one. So I'm wondering who was 5th there.
I think it was Mahari, right? Yeah, Mahari was 5th.
Yeah.
Yeah, Gressier and Kimeli, I thought, played it very well. They got in good position at the bell. They were there. They made the moves they had to do. And I thought Kimeli in particular, Mahari, he waited him out, and he didn't get too rash trying to battle him. Like, he waited and picked his spot. He ran a really good race. He closed really well. It's just he had the Olympic 1,500 meter champion kicking with him, and he's got the best kick in the world right now.
Jordy Beamish might.
Sorry, fair point. Those two.
Jordy, we got to remember this. Jordy Beamish outkicked Cole Hocker at World Indoors. Went from like 6th to 1st on the final 50 of an indoor track when the same year the Cole Hocker won the 1,500. So
yeah, so it's those two. Beamish went from 11th to 1st on the last lap, and then Hocker went from 12th to 1st. But the thing is, those two guys played it strategically, and I'm the one guy who talks on this podcast all the time. Positioning matters, tactics matters. Not really. I mean, Hocker, this is what he did very well, is he didn't waste any energy for the first 4,200, maybe even 4,600 meters. He just hung on the rail, stayed out of trouble, didn't panic. The last lap, he closed in 52.6, Robert, for his last 400. 25.5 for his last 200 in a sub-13 race while running essentially the entire last lap in lane 2. I think the very start of the first turn was in lane 1. Pretty much everything else was lane 2. He had to go wide, which is ironic. This guy is known for riding the rail. That's how he won his Olympic title. That's how he won USA's in the 5K. In this one, he's just going wide around everyone. And I just said, was there any doubt in your mind at the bell? You're so far back. And he's just like, I knew I just had to move up a little bit earlier in that last lap. I couldn't just wait to the last 200 and outkick everyone. I had to start gaining position. That's why he went so wide on the first turn. He got in position by 200 to go. Again, he's running wide there, but his kick was just, when your kick's that good, it can make up for a lot of tactical flaws or whatever. So he wasn't in the best position at the bell. I don't think you would ever say, like, you want to be in 12th, but he was in contact, and with a kick like that, you've always got a chance. It's phenomenal.
Yeah.
I mean, Robert, I'm thinking, like, the pantheon of U.S. distance runners, Cole Hocker, like, where do we put him now? Legat has more medals, and he did this double. He did the 15 5K double at the same meet.
It doesn't mean as much to me from Legat. He was already winning medals for Kenya. He'd already run 3:26 for Kenya. Like, this is like, we've been waiting for something like this for what, 60 years?
Well, outside of Legat,
since the last time we were in Tokyo,
outside of Legat, the last American and the only other American to win the 5,000 meters of the global championship was Bob Scholl in Tokyo, right across the street, the old National Stadium. And he also did it with an insane kick. He closed in 38.7 for his last 300 on a wet, dirt track, cinder track. Hocker, I think it was 38.6 was his final 300, or very eerily similar massive closes by those two guys. Those are the only two American-born athletes to win gold in the 5,000 meters. And it's the same city.
It's been, I wrote the article from like 1987 till Jake Whiteman in Eugene, so that would be 2022. It was like 0 for 64. No, every men's mid-distance and distance medal.
Not mid-distance.
Every men's 1,500 and up, all 64 of them were won by someone born in Africa. And since then, more than half have been won by non-African born people. And in this one, you had
every distance final on the track was won by a non-African born athlete. So 1,500 was Nader, 5,000 was Hocker, 10,000 was Gressier, steeple was Beamish.
And then what's interesting is Africa's getting good at the sprints. Botswana beats the U.S. in the 4x4, and they're very proud of that. So it's just a global world. It's fun. And we talk about the Westerners doing well on the men's side. Well, when we get to the women's side, bow down to Kenya. They won every single gold, 800 through 10,000. Did they catch the marathon too? I don't remember who won the women's marathon.
Perez Jepchirchir, yeah, they won the marathon as well.
But all right, a few other results here. Young 6th, as we said. Fisher was 8th. Jakob ended up 10th. If you're a British fan, George Mills was the only guy dropped early, 13:44. NCAA's runner Vincent Soka was also dropped pretty early, 13:34. He was 15th. But I talked to Fisher afterwards. He said it kind of ended up being a long year, but he didn't no one asked him specifically about Grand Slam track. He's like, I just didn't have it. He was hoping that he could push the pace, and he's like, it's just hard in the middle. I'm like, well, how do the 5 and 10K guys make the 5,000 a race that the 1,500 runners don't win? He's like, it's very hard. He's like, the rabbiting really, really helps in the 5 and the 10. It really helps. And we're used to that, and we don't have that. So I don't know what the path is going forward, because you need a sick kick to win this race. And Kimeli does have one, but as a 5K guy. But if Laros had been in here, I mean, I really thought the other day, like Laros or Hocker or Kimeli, and the traditional 10K guys didn't really have a shot. Talked to Benny Hamahari. I'm still waiting for him to be the future. But I really, once he lost to, he was even farther back in Fisher in a 3,000 a few weeks ago. I was very worried about it. And he basically was worried about it too. He's worried about his kick. And, he had the lead on the last lap and then ends up, 5th. And he seemed okay with that. He's a young kid. I mean, you're 18 years old and you're 5th in the world. Like, no one does that. No one does that. But I said, hey, like, you seem like you're concerned about your kick. You won the Ethiopian trials in the 10,000. Why didn't you run the 10,000? Kejelcha, who actually medaled in the 10,000, didn't even run the Ethiopian trials, pre-classic. And he ended up in there. He's like, I wanted to run the 10,000. So if you want to know one reason why the Western athletes may be coming up is, I think we're a little bit better run than them. Like, you have your 10,000 meter champion wanting to run it, and they don't let him do it. Maybe they think, oh, he's too young to run the 10,000. So they put him in the 5,000, he gets slaughtered. Now, immediately, Kejelcha did get the medal in the silver, but then Kejelcha, after winning the medal in the silver, is like, hey, I want to run the 5,000. Now, Ethiopia does have a problem because they got Kejelcha, who's medaled in the past. They got Arigawi, who's medaled in the past. They've got Barega, who's medaled in the past. So they had a pretty stacked 10,000 meter team. That's why take the politics out of it. Have a trials. Let people earn their way into the team. But to me, that was very interesting to learn that today. About from Arigawi.
Yeah, and I think you got to give a lot of credit to Cole Hocker and his progress in the 5,000 meters. This is a guy who was 7th at the U.S. Championships in the 5,000 meters last year, was dropped convincingly by Grant Fisher, and he said afterwards, having 5 races in 10 days at the trials, he thinks he just wasn't quite strong enough to handle that. Well, turns around this year. Indoors, he runs a PB of 12:57, but tonight's race was a 12:58 race. So he made strength gains over the winter, obviously, because he was able to run 7:23 indoors in that 3K against Fisher. But he showed up to the Stockholm Diamond League in June, and he said part of it was due to travel, but he got absolutely crushed in that race. Almgren ran 12:44. There were a bunch of other guys, sub 13. And Cole Hocker was way back. Sorry, there's 2 other guys sub 13. But Cole Hocker was way back in 7th in 13:09. Just got destroyed. And he just said, I said, what was the difference between getting crushed in that race to now you're the world champion? He just said 3 more months of training. So he continued to build strength, even as the 1,500 was probably his primary focus. So you got to give him a lot of credit to getting to this point where he's able to be strong enough to not only be there in a 12:58 race, but to have his monster kick still intact at that pace. So that was impressive. I do think it probably helped him. It didn't hurt him to get DQ'd in the 1,500 because that's one less 1,500 race in his legs. And I think, this one he had 2 5Ks in 3 days. Obviously, he wanted to be in the 1,500 final. He said it hurt a lot. It was tough to mentally rebound from that one. But last year, he thought 5 races in 10 days was the reason he didn't have anything at the end of that 5K in the Olympic trials. Well, this year, he had 4 races in 9 days. And that's why he felt, I didn't ask him about this specifically, but I have to imagine that helped him along with just another year of healthy training. I mean, the guy's he's 24 years old. So you would think if he's able to stay healthy, he should be able to continue to improve. But yeah, no, just like so clutch the last 2 years to talk the whole season about, I'll be ready when it counts. I'll be ready when it counts. This is a guy who he got 3rd at USA's at the 1,500 and he wasn't worried as the Olympic champion. And he wasn't worried. He said he would be there. He was confident in his fitness. I mean, Okay, he didn't make the 1500 final, and that was, kind of his fault. But no one can talk crap to him when you win the 5K like that.
All right, John, let's get to the heart of the matter. Roge runner. John Rojo, prime Jakob versus Hocker, and a championship style 5,000. Who you got? This is a great question because when you see that kick, you're like, how could anyone ever beat that kick? But then I looked up what Jakob has run, and I probably, it's a little bit hard to do this live as you're looking it up, but I thought it was wrong because it just, the data seems so similar. Jakob, we got to remember how good he was in the 5,000 before this year. Like dominant victory last year by more than a second. And we wrote, he won his Olympic 5,000 gold to add to his 2022 and 2023 world titles. And he did so by closing his final 1,600. This is a 13:13 race. So it was slower than tonight, 3:53. Tonight it was 4:01, I think. He ran 1:19.9 for his final 600 and 53.2 for his final 400 in the 13:13 race. And he won by a lot, so he could have gone faster.
Right. The pace was faster overall tonight, but the last 1K was a lot faster in Paris last year. So I would go with Jakob because I think what he would do is he would take it with maybe a mile or maybe a K to go. And I think he would either drop Hocker or you would get him to the point where he's not able to have, his kick has been dulled a bit. So I would lean Jakob. I'd love to see it. I really pray that these two guys are both healthy and firing at 100%, either at the World Ultimate Champs next year or at the World Championships in Beijing in 2027, because we need to see them both in a 1,500 and in a 5K. It'll be great for the sport.
Now, there's another post from, this is why I thought it was wrong, because I looked it up when I was at the track. I looked it up to see what he closed last year in. And then I got ready, was getting ready for the show, and someone says on the message board was letsrun.com/forum says Jakob in Budapest 2023 closed his final 600 at 1:19.9. So two times, 2023 and 2024, his last 600 is exactly the same, 1:19.9. How crazy is that? And that was a 13:11 race. He closed his last lap there in 52:45. So that's, what was Hocker tonight?
52:62. Now, granted, Hocker, it's probably a 51 if he's running the whole thing in lane one.
Yeah, and it would be really, really interesting. Hocker was, is Jakob now, would Jakob be strong enough to drop the new Cole Hocker? This worked today because, it did slow down there between 3 and 4K, and then Hocker, he was still kind of too far back at the bell. If he's that far back against Jakob at the bell, I don't think he's catching him. But, you watch that today and you're like, how could this guy ever lose? And you watch, it was like when he was coming up at Oregon, like you heard Kupatier on YouTube would say, oh, this guy, he's like,
Kupatier said this was Cole Hocker's redshirt freshman year before he had done anything of note. He said Cole Hocker is the future of American distance running. This was in like February 2021 when they had just broken the DMR NCAA record, and Cole was running like the 1,200 leg and Cooper was the anchor. And I was like, that's a pretty bold proclamation. That is the truest words ever spoken by anyone, because he was 100% correct.
Well, right. I remember when he did that, and when he said that, I was like, oh, is he just being nice, or does he realize this guy's like insane in practice? So anyways, amazing race for Cole. Really fun race. It wasn't a jog fest. You had the Americans trying to do a race that would make pretty proud, and then you had an American win. So if you're a U.S. fan and did enjoy that.
What do we make of Grant Fish's championships, Robert?
What I make, disappointing. I mean, how is there any other way to make of it?
Well, I figured. That's kind of how I view it. He was third and third the last 2 years. Sorry, in the finals last year in Paris. But I do credit him for like trying to get something going. Did you ask him, Robert, about whether he considered trying to continue to push? They made the first mile fairly fast, but then they backed off, and it didn't end up having that much of an impact because almost everyone was still there at the end of the last 800.
He said he didn't feel good enough to do it. So, he said his legs didn't feel good. Like, both races.
Okay.
So they're kind of screwed. I mean, it almost was like, you should listen to you, John. It's like, almost like he wants a rabbit now. Like he realizes like there's nothing we can do in the 5. We're screwed. Like we can't push it hard enough to drop these guys, and then they're going to outkick us. So 10,000 maybe is a slightly different story. I mean, I guess Chibet somehow does outkick the 1,500 people in the women's side, but yeah, you know, I mean, he was. What were the 2 places at this championships? Eighth and 8th.
I mean,
that's not good for him. In 2021 he was 5th. 2022, this is his best finish between the 5 and the 10. He was 6th. 2022 is also 4th actually, and then last year he got 3 bronze. It's hard though. There's a lot of good people, and the way I view it is, I mean, look at Yumi Kajelcha. There's a lot of guys that are capable of medaling, but most of the time they're not going to quite get it perfectly, and they're not going to medal. And then you've got the guys really capable of winning. They can be a little bit off and still medal, but it's hard.
Yeah, no,
it's extremely hard. Like Kai Robinson, great example. Ran out of his mind, had a great race. Wasn't really that close. I mean, I know he's 1 spot away from medaling, but today reminded me a little bit of Luis Grijalva. One of the times, Luis Grijalva's been twice 4th in the 5,000. One of the times he wasn't really that close to medaling. I remember, and it's like, okay, you think, oh, he's 4th, he's going to move up. Maybe not. He was 4th again, but then he's been hurt, and it's just a tough ball game.
Yeah, Fisher had. I mean, he's usually in the mix. He wasn't as close this year, even though, you know, with 100 to go in the 10K, he was still had a shot at the medal.
Okay,
but he had 2 world records indoors. Like most of the last 24 months, he's been really, really good. He just wasn't very good at this meet.
Now we may owe it to, we're trying to make World Cross a big thing. It's in Tallahassee. I had an apology to people. I had to interview people, so I couldn't. I wanted to wait, like when it was all done, say, "Will you come to World Cross?" to get them on record, to embarrass them to show up. I didn't ask Fisher because I had to go interview somebody else, and then John did ask Jakob though about World Cross Country.
Yeah, and he said that his first priority was to get healthy, because Jakob was pretty open about. He said he didn't. He said he didn't run the week before Worlds, and I don't know when he's counting the stop and start there, but. What he made clear is this Achilles injury. It wasn't just like, okay, I had it and then I got healthy again, but I didn't have enough time training. No, he'd have it and then he'd log some training and then it would come back and he'd have to stop. And he said that was really frustrating. And he was asked, well, on social media, you're portrayed as so confident in your YouTube videos and you're smiling and it looks good. He's like, yeah, that was just a mask. Like, that's not really what was going on behind the scenes. So it's been a very frustrating 6 months for Jakob, but he feels good right now. He said, I felt better today than I did in the prelims. I felt better in the prelims than I did in the prelims or the 1,500. He was very worried about showing up and racing and making the injury worse. He's like, I really don't want to get hurt again after all the frustration of this year. But he's like, look, it's a World Championships. I had to show up and give it a go. And I respect that attitude. So I really hope he didn't do any sort of long-term damage or have any setbacks, because
as someone who's had Achilles surgery myself, this is what I want to know. Is this the type of injury that would respond to surgery? And if so, I think you should do it right now. Do it right now. It takes a full year to come back from generally. Or it can take up to a year if he has the same type of surgery I did or Galen Rupp had. And just get it out of the way. You don't want to be Chris Derrick and battling an Achilles injury for the next 4 years. Well, anyways, Trip Smouth on YouTube did say Prime Jacob equals 7:17 3K fitness. That's true. I mean, we had Fisher and we had Fisher and Hocker running a 3K indoors in Milrose. That was a 7:22 world record.
Yeah, and the strength guy beat the 1,500 guy.
Fisher won that.
Yeah.
But I'm not convinced. Well, I believe Hocker's fitter now. So I'm not ruling out Hocker beating Jakob in a peak to peak. I think Jakob would probably win, but I'm not sure. I mean, moving forward, no.
No, I want to see it. I want to see that.
You got betting odds for next year? They're both healthy. I would.
I'd have Hocker in the 15 and Jakob in the 5. That's what I would have.
Of course.
But for World Cross, yeah, Jakob said his main priority is getting healthy right now, and then he'll, if he can stay healthy this fall, then he'll make decisions. But I wouldn't be shocked to see him hop in a road race or something like that. And he said he loves to compete. He wants to run a lot of championships. There is World Indoors in March, but I don't know. I think he could do very well in world cross country, and if he's healthy, I would love to see him there. He runs Eurocross whenever he's healthy every time. So let's get him out to Tallahassee. And Nico Young, you said he sounds like he wants to do world cross country. Blanks wants to do it. Mance wants to do it.
We're not going to have room for all these guys, which is great.
Well, we might. 6-person team. I think all those guys could make it.
Let's go with the top 6 here. All right, we got Mance on there.
Mance, Blanks, Young.
Definitely.
Fisher if he runs it. And then I think the remaining 2 spots, who would you get up there? I mean, Drew Hunter would be in the mix, I think, if he wants to do it. Cupertino won US Cross a couple of years ago. He might have a shot. Dylan Jacobs. Noah would have to be he'd have to stay healthy to have a shot there. Who am I missing here off the top of my head?
Well, we'll have a month-long off-season to talk about this.
Yeah. All right. Should we move to the 800?
Yeah, but I think we finally got through that 5,000. All right. Women's 800 was, it was first up, right, John? So if you didn't see your favorite interview of the women's 800, there was a 12-minute gap between the start of the women's 8 and the men's 5. And we're just like, no, we're not trying to go down to the basement of the stadium and interview the 5th placer in the women's 8 and miss the entire 5,000.
Well, the respect to the 5th placer in the women's 8, Hurta Klecker, she ran an enormous PB of 155 and is now the 3rd fastest woman ever from the U.S. Like, she deserved an interview, but I did want to see the men's 5Ks because I thought it would be a special race.
It was good. So the gun goes off, and we've just been wondering all season, like, Keely was a dominant winner in the Olympics and been injured. Comes out, though, runs like so fast in the first race, 154. You're going to handle the goal. Doesn't run as fast in the second race, 155, and then hasn't been looking amazing here. Had the same time as someone in the same age, but it's been in the front controlling things. And we had some friends texting us like, "What do you think?" I'm debating betting on this race. And I was like, "Look," she told the BBC. She said, "Everyone knows I hate the prelims," so I kind of thought, okay, she's just playing a little safe. She's going to raise her game in the final. But I also did think, but we don't know. Like, it could come out that she's been injured. She's been injured. Like, is injury still bothering her? Maybe she's not as fit as she thought. And then the gun goes off, and she doesn't win. And I think, in large part, we're saying, like, how can Grant Fisher get a chance in the 5,000? How can Nico get a chance in the 5,000? You need someone else to blow up the other. If we had, like, two people willing to run so stupid that they sacrifice their own race, then Fisher might have a chance. And they got that in this race. Mary Moraa, the reigning world champion coming in, 2023 champ, who is one of the worst tactical runners I've ever seen, ran a bizarre race yet again. She goes out super hard, 26.
26:35. And then 55:67 at 400.
We've been seeing that a lot. Fast 200 for the women, and then they slow down. But 26, and Keely is used to going to the front, but she couldn't get there because Mary was there. But Mary, instead of just tucking in lane 1, like, runs the whole thing like the middle to outside of lane 1. And then, so she's running extra ground. Keely's on her inside. And instead of squeezing in and cutting her off, she lets Keely take the lead. Keely had the lead right at 600.
Yeah.
And it was one.
Well, she didn't let her. I mean, Keely tried to pass her multiple times and couldn't really get around. She was in inside position the whole time, but Moraa would respond, and Keely said afterwards she's probably wasted some energy making those moves.
So maybe it was brilliant by Murray to, like, let Keely think, I can get on the inside instead of just being patient waiting for the outside.
I'd love to know what goes through her mind in races. But Robert, it sets the stage for Keely does finally get to the lead with 200 to go, but Georgia Hunter Bell is still there. Odira is coming from behind. She's 4th with 100 to go, but she was moving the best of anyone. She had a great final 100 meters. and Hunter Bell also nipped Keely at the line there for the silver. So Odira wins it, 154.62, PRs by almost 2 seconds, championship record. Hunter Bell second, 154.90. She PB'd by more than a second. I think her old PB was 156. And Keely runs 154. I mean, Keely Hodgkinson missed her personal best in this race by 3/10 of a second. This was very fast for her. It just was, and usually that's enough to gold for gold. You run 154.9 in the World Championship final. That's almost always going to be enough to win. Yeah, but it wasn't tonight.
Injury prone year, and she runs 154 and loses. I guess I shouldn't be negative. I didn't really realize that. Yeah, and Georgia Hunter Bell, you got to give her credit. Like I said last night, I don't see her getting the silver. I said maybe she's going to get the bronze, and she beat Keely. And I was wondering, like, they work out together. I thought it was an odd decision for her to run to run just the 8, not the 15 and 8. I'm like, she must think at some level there's some way she could beat Keely, and she did. So I think it's hard. Like, and this is why the 8 and the 15 are interesting, because there's tactics involved. You got to get the pacing right, and someone else is fighting you for the thing, or they leave it open so you can try to go for the inside pass and they shut it down. It can be tough. And I always say in the 800, you got one move. Maybe Keely, use your moves too early. I also got to give, I gave Jonathan Galt praise for some of his predictions on these races tonight. I remember doing the homepage. So, we have a nice homepage. If you've never been to Let's Run, you need to go to Let's Run now. Let'sRun.com. But, we put up the news of the day. And coming into Worlds last week, before I left, on Thursday and Friday, I was doing it. And there was an article from Seb Coe. And he's like, I really think that I can't find it. He said, I think Keely can be one of the sport's all-time greats. And she's already a huge star in Britain. I mean, much bigger than Cole Hocker is here in the U.S. And anyways, he basically said, like, sometimes you can be injured and you come back and you run over your fitness. And I remember just, here it is. And I was thinking about that. And I was like, well, well, why would that be? Maybe you back off. You're not overtrained. So but Trevor Painter's such a good coach. But that ended up being true. I was like wondering if he was just trying to lower expectations to it. Did you see those quotes, John?
No, I don't know what you're talking about. But Keely did say she felt a little underraced. She wished she had run a bit more.
Here's the quote. You have to marvel about how she's come back. To be out injured and then basically your first foot on the track and you're running 154. So she ran 154 in the first race. We've been saying this for a real deal. She's saying this for a long time. She's the real deal. The only caution I would counsel is sometimes you're so keen to get back into competition that you almost perform above the level of endurance and fitness that you have. What I thought was quite clever was doing 2 races back-to-back because they were clearly testing was that this thesis really.
Yeah.
That she had enough in the tank to go back-to-back, which is what she'll be asked to do in Tokyo. So that's a good point. This is her 3rd race in Tokyo. It wasn't as good, and she was beaten. And I think that she's also running a different race than Odira is. Keely's running to win. And I really...
Who won the race?
Odira.
Yeah, she wasn't running to win.
Everyone's running to win. But, John, don't act like people don't run totally differently when they're expected to win versus when they're not.
Okay, that's a different point, but I agree with that.
And yes. I've got 10 years of coaching experience, folks. I don't know if you're new to the show. Somehow I've won 13 Ivy League titles in 10 years. It seems mathematically impossible, but go to the Ivy League Hall of Fame. They're probably building a statue outside right now for me. It's kind of a joke, but all it's true. But look, I lost my train of thought, flattering myself.
Okay.
No, but when I was coaching, like, you really, if I'm going to put my coaching hat on, you shouldn't run a different race. You should just conserve energy, run smart, and get to the finish. You can come from way behind and win if you've got a sick kick. Beeman showed it. Hocker showed it. And Odira showed it. What was she like at the bell? At 600.
Oh, she was like 5th or 6th. Look, the thing on Keely here is I got flashbacks to 2022 and 2023 when she'd let Marah bully her with her tactics, and she would get sucked into it and would run Marah's race, and it would backfire because Marah's race is a crazy race, and if you're not totally if you're not ready to run that kind of race, you're going to get chewed out, up and spit out. And I feel like that kind of happened tonight. In 2024, Hodgkinson just said, "Okay, Mary, you want the lead? I'll back off. I'll run my own race, and I'll run you down when you run out of steam." And I think if she did that tonight, maybe she wins because she ran 154.9, trying to battle Marah for the lead a couple times on the bell lap. I think if she backs off, doesn't run quite as aggressively, she could run a little bit faster, and she has more energy at the end. So I think she got sucked into old habits, and maybe that's just she hasn't been on the scene that much this year. And she hasn't had those, she hasn't really been in close races at all for a while.
The 800 can be tough. Those little micro moves kill you. And look, if I was coaching the 8, I'll be like, if somebody else wants to take the lead, let them take it. Get right behind them. That's called a rabbit. You just cruise. If you can hit 600 in a fast pace, a 154 pace with somebody else leading, God bless, that'd be amazing. Keely probably run 153. So the problem with Mary Marah is, again, she was running on the outside of the lane, so I can see why Keely's thinking, well, I'm going to try to get ahead of her before the curve so I don't have to run extra distance, and then she couldn't quite get through her and up and back. And, if you Odira needs to give like 10 grand of her prize money to Marah for running like an idiot because it probably did hurt Keely.
Okay, now let's talk about the champion a little bit here because this is not someone we would have predicted to win at the start of the year. And I will say she did win the Kenyan Olympic trials last year. She PR'd twice in the Olympics. So there were signs at the end of last year she was out on the upward swing. But her PR at the end of last season was 158.53. And at the start of last season, her PR was 204. So she's 26 years old. I want to know the backstory here. I'm not really familiar with her backstory. I know she's in sort of the Kenyan prisons setup. Actually, I just got a text from her agent, Malcolm Anderson.
Well, one thing I'm wondering is, she's 26. She could have had a child because there's no results from 2019. Well, we also had COVID, I guess. When you're running, she ran 204 in 2016. Then she doesn't break 210 in 2018 or 19. But there's no results for 2020, 21, 22.
Yeah. So I don't know. We need to explore what exactly happened there, why there were these missing years. But what I would say is, if you look at this season, okay, indoors, she went out in the semis at World Indoors. We didn't really get to see what she could do there. Outdoors, she runs a PB in her first serious race, Nairobi, the end of May, 158.31. And then she doesn't, the only race between then and Silesia, she's running the Kenyan, national championships, the Kenyan trials. They're not fast races. She won the Kenyan trials in 2:13. So that was a joke race. Then she gets to the Diamond League in Silesia on August 16th and runs 156.5. So she had a big stretch there where she wasn't really running any races for time. She's building fitness. Obviously, to go from 158 to now running 154.6 in the World Championship final, she's improved a lot at age 26. But I don't know. I asked her essentially, she was asked in the mix zone, how did you improve so much? And she said, I was just trying to be patient. I did a lot of cross-country races this winter. I think that helped me build my endurance a bit. And she then said, I didn't get the opportunity to run faster earlier because, she fell at World Indoors and she wasn't in some of these faster races. So I don't think it just, she went from 158 shape to 154 over. Well, I don't know. She's not the only one in this event or in some of these events who have made these big leaps. We've seen Georgia Hunter-Bell did it. Jess Hull did it. So, and we've seen it even on other events. Like some of these athletes, the reason why Keely Hodgkinson didn't win this thing going away is because the two women who beat her ran huge PBs at this meet. And sometimes you just don't know. Someone's going to show up and they're actually in a lot better shape than they've been racing because they've been training through something, or you don't know what they're doing in practice. We see the results in the Diamond League, but we don't see the second half of the iceberg underneath. So anyway, it's a crazy
I think
result.
the thing that would make people, I don't know if suspicious is the right word. I want to know what she was doing when she was running the 214s and the 210s. Like she in some ways, I would argue her story is very similar to Georgia Hunter-Bell's. Like obviously a teen phenom, running 2:04 at 16 or 17, and then does nothing, and then comes back to the sport and gets serious, and is now, I was gonna say one of the best in the world. No, is the best in the world, is the world champion. And because when they were introducing Hunter Bell today, I was thinking, what is this like? This is a woman. I've always felt this though, but this is a woman that was like not even making the Pac-12 final in the 800. And she was coached by Shelby Houlihan's sister, who just coached Shelby Houlihan to a medal. To a near medal. And I was like, the same person now, 10 years later, roughly, is on the track hoping to win a medal. She's an Olympic medalist. Like, she's just fitter. Like my twin brother Weldon back in the day. Like, he was not very good in the Ivy League. Like, never higher than 5th in the 10K. Then he got 4th professionally in the U.S. Same mindset. He was just a lot fitter. I'm not saying that the mind has anything to do with it, but if you're trained well, it's just kind of interesting. Like, she's okay. Same person who was like extremely talented, couldn't make a Pac-12 final, is now an Olympic medalist. Like, what's changed? How do you explain it? How was it so bad before? How is it so good? I mean, some people are saying, yes, doping. There's a lot of doping in Kenya. Sure. Yeah, there is. But okay, what does that mean? By the way, I ran into Martin Keno, Kip Keno's son, went to high school in America, had a pretty good career at Arizona, was a big rabbit on the circuit too. We got to have him on the pod. I asked him about Kenyan doping and Ethiopian doping. Why is it higher in one? And he's like, well, testing. And he did say cultural reasons, he thought, but really interesting stuff.
All right.
But
we need to give a shout out to the American. We've barely talked about her.
Well, that's what I was going to say. She's not the only one making it.
Hurta Klecker PRs, her PR coming into this, just give me 1 second to find it. I know it was 157. It was 157.53, and she ran 155.89. She wasn't afraid to go out with it. She was up there. She was in the mix, holds on. And what's crazy to me is Hurta Klecker needed a dive at the finish line just to make the World Championship team for the U.S. It was her and Nia Akins diving for the line, and she goes from that 6 weeks ago to now 3rd fastest American ever, behind only Athing Mo and RJ Wilson, and 5th place in the fastest World Championship final we've ever seen. So, and this incredible run by Sage, it goes to show, like, she's been working for years to finally get this opportunity on the world stage. She'd never made a world indoor team. She just missed out this year. She'd been 4th a few times outdoors. She finally gets it by the narrowest of margins on the team, and she's at Worlds, and she made the most of the opportunity. Like, I'd have to imagine obviously, when you're in the final, you'd like to medal, but to run 155, just fantastic job by her. And honestly, the entire On Athletics Club, we walked by Dathan Ritzenheim on the way out of the stadium. We were just like, dude, your team crushed it, because Jordy Beamish won the world title. Jose Andrews was 6th. Sage Hurta Klecker was 5th, and Kai Robinson was 4th. So I'm sure. Am I forgetting anyone else they had at this meet, Robert? But almost everyone. Say that again.
Did you say Farkin?
Oh, Farkin was 6th. So I would say that entire group, all of them outperformed expectations in terms of where you would have had them placing, and they got a world champion out of it as well. So the OAC, they got some.
No, I would say every athlete that was made it to now, they had some high profile people not make it to Worlds.
Exactly.
Like, Ollie Hoare didn't make it. I keep saying the Harvard girl, Maya Ramsden didn't make it.
Nagoose didn't make it. But the ones who showed, some of them massively out of the park. Great.
On the message board, I talked to him about that. Someone saying, get Robert a bag of ice. He's been patting himself on the back. So I don't want to praise myself. But why don't you tell the live listeners, John, what Rich said to me as we were outside the stadium today?
Rich said something that I've heard like half a dozen people tell Robert this week. You look skinny. Apparently, so I guess the subtext here, Robert, is that perhaps a few years ago, some people may have thought you looked a little, chubby. But yeah, they're all commending Robert on the weight he's lost by going to his treadmill classes. So
and I haven't been
good. I'll pat you on the back. Good job, Robert.
I hope there's not something physically wrong because I tried to lose weight and just keeps coming off. So honestly, it does feel good. I mean, it's crazy. I just keep saying it. So.
So question: we got people talking about Thing Mo. What happens with the Thing Mo? Should she change coaches? I was thinking like the Thing Mo should go to the World Athletics Club, and I'm like, oh yeah, she's sponsored by Nike, so that can't really happen. But it's we don't need to. We've talked about Thing Mo plenty on this podcast.
Well, there was a fascinating thread on Let's Run. Like, if Sydney McLaughlin runs the 800, could she run 150, 149? Could she be the first person to break 149? And then about like the eighth post down was like, remember her coach is Bobby Kersey. I don't think she could break 205. So it's very funny post there. So yeah, like the women's 8 was fast. And at first you're like, oh, what did Keely do wrong? She had to fight off a maniac, and she still ran 154. Just 154 wasn't good enough to win. So I don't think that Odira and Hunter Bell, they need to be commended too, because they went out hard. I still don't think – I wish Justin Rinaldi, who often is listening to his live chats, Josh Hoey's coach, was on here, because the women's pacing just seems weird to me. It's all about it's like the first two, and then they run like 26s, and then they just run like 29 highs the rest of the way home, and it's a super fast time. I would like to see it more even, but that's the women's 8.
All right, and then the relays. The one I think is worth talking about is the men's 4x4. I mean, credit to the 4x1s for getting the stick around, but
it was fun. I mean, it was interesting. U.S. men's totally dominated. U.S. women, it was interesting to see Sha'Carri on the anchor. Sort of, we get it with the lead, and then pretty comfortable, but last like 20 meters, they're gaining on Sha'Carri. Sha'Carri's just not Sha'Carri, but it was fun to see her win. Like, again, she could have bagged the season. She could have just not shown up, but she came. She lost individually, but she supported the country, and she got the job done. So congrats to her. Christian Coleman's father is not necessarily a fan of the podcast, because I said back in these doping days, he really needed to be careful about drugs. People are going to doubt him because of these whereabouts failures. But kudos to him. I mean, he fourth in the U.S. 100. Was he even fourth? But did make the team in the 100. Shows up here to run the relay, and they get the job done.
Coleman's a reliable opening leg. He's a good relay runner. It wasn't his fault last year that they got DQ'd. Kenny Benerick left too early, but they got it right this time. It's kind of amazing. Of the 8 U.S. relay legs in the 4x1, 7 of them are coached by Dennis Mitchell. The entire women's team, Melissa Jefferson-Wooden, T.T. Terry, Kayla White, Sha'Carri Richardson, they're all Dennis Mitchell athletes. And then on the men, it was Courtney Lindsay, Kenny Benerick, and Christian Coleman are all with Mitchell, and Noah Lyles is with Lance Browman. So, and look, you got to give credit to the Americans, because on paper, you would say Jamaica was the favorite in the men's race. They have 1-2 in the individual 100, and they couldn't even make it out of the prelims. It's batons and handoffs have been an issue for the U.S. through the years. And we made a point. We said, look, they got rid of Michelle Lewis-Freeman, who was a great women's relay coach at the end of last season, because USATF thought they could do it better. They thought they could have better communication with the athletes, and the results really couldn't have been much better in this meet. So, so World Relays was a little worrying. It didn't go great. They didn't have the A team. They had the A team here, and they got 4 golds and a silver. Now, that silver, as we said in the introduction, nothing to be ashamed of. Botswana had 3 guys in the 400 final individually, including the champion, and what an anchor leg that was. Last year, I mean, these 4x4s, USA Botswana, they got a rivalry going now in the 4x4. Last year's Olympic final in Paris was amazing. Both teams almost broke the world record. The US won that one, Benjamin holding off Tobago. And tonight, the first 3 legs did a great job for the US. Vernon Norwood, Ja'Cory Batterson, Caleb McRae, entirely different team from the one that qualified earlier this morning in the runoff against Kenya. And they got Benjamin the stick with the lead, but he had to hold off Colin Kebanat-Chipi, the individual 400-meter champion. And with about 50 meters to go, it looked like he had done that. Kebanat-Chipi just wasn't moving up. I didn't think he had a move in him. He didn't look amazing to me. I was like, wow, Benjamin's really going to do this. He's going to hold off the individual 400-meter champion. This is, he's looking good here. And Cabernet Sheepy had a move left in him, and it ended kind of like a distance race. You don't always see this in the 4x4. These three teams crossing like very close together, but Botswana made the move right at the line, and South Africa and USA crossed almost next to each other. That race was decided by 0.02 of a second for the silver, which the US gets, but just really great action. It was really fun to watch. Loved the whole race. The US had to run the first leg was more in the rain because it's kind of a disadvantage in some of these relays where some of the inside lanes are really wet because it was pouring during this race. And then some of the outside lanes are relatively dry. Obviously, towards the end, everyone's running on the inside. But great job by Botswana and the US. I don't know how much more they could have done. They put themselves in position. They had the lead until the very end. They just didn't have enough against the best 400 runner in the world.
You don't know what they could have done. I
not
can
go
do it,
out the night before.
and I'll say it.
Okay.
Look, I was stunned in the post-race thing. Like, this was a fun race. I thought we had it, which was surprising because we were barely getting to the final. Now, the U.S. does have an advantage the other teams don't have. Well, although the U.S. is kind of like the Yankees or something like that. It's like if you're a fan, you're going to like him. If you hate him, you're looking for ways to pile on him. So if the U.S. holds people out and doesn't make the final, the coach is an idiot. But if they get away with it, then these guys are fresher. Botswana's having to run all their people. Like, they're tired. So first of all, shout out to Tobogo. What a talent. He loves to run for the country. And he runs the fastest split of the night. I think it was like 43-1 or 43.
Well, he was the fastest one that we have listed. Someone in the comments is saying that Van Niekerk ran a 43 for South Africa. They don't have the South African team splits, so can't confirm that. But
they're saying that Tobogo ran 44.05. Someone's saying Van Niekerk ran 43.02. That would be fun if it's true. And it was really fun to see. Well, first of all, World Relays, I think, are going to be in Botswana next year, which will be crazy. But in the mixed zone, Botswana and South Africa were posing together. Like, they were talking. They're proud of Africa. It means a lot to them. That's why they're getting good. And the U.S., the relays don't mean as much. Like, we have to just, particularly for the individual stars. We've seen Femke Bol show up and run the mixed relay. Do we see Sydney McLaughlin run the mixed relay? No, we don't. Do we see Rai Benjamin run the mixed relay? No, we don't. Like, it's just, we think we're going to win that anyways, or the way their contracts are, it's just not as big a deal. In other countries, they don't have very many medals. Your national heroes, the relay is a huge priority. For the U.S., it's not nearly to the same extent. And we saw this in this race. Afterwards, Rai Benjamin's like, yeah, man, last night was a late night for me. I'm like, is he implying that he was out partying? He's like, yeah, we were. So I followed up. And then one of the runners was like, well, man, acting like I shouldn't be asking it. If someone's going to tell me they're out the night before the race, I'm just not going to let that fly. So I said, well, see, yeah, we were out. Okay. Like, don't party. Like, do you think that made a tenth of a second? Yeah, I think it might have. Now, there was some, they didn't know that we were going to get in until about 12 o'clock. But look, they were definitely sending out emails. They were definitely letting these guys know. There's no way that they did not. I mean, we knew by when we left the stadium.
Right. I mean, maybe he's just ignoring his phone. He's like, I'm the world champion. But I don't know. Yeah, I feel like until there was clearly uncertainty about this whole situation.
To praise him, I mean, it's just, I just think that's a little bit unprofessional. I was stunned he told us. He could have just not told us. And then he's like, but I woke up today and was like, I'm not letting these guys down. Well, kudos to him. Kudos to him for going out there and trying. But I'm just saying, like, that. I mean, call a spade a spade. Going out the night before the race is probably not a good idea. It was kind of shocking to me to hear that, to be honest. But look, he's an amazing athlete. It was a fun race, and hats off to Botswana. Like, insane. So,
but did you also want to talk about your interview from the prelims this morning, or the runoff?
Well, correct. So I went this morning to watch the race, and the slowest leg was the 45-0 split by Demarius Smith. And he was one of the runners that was involved in the handoff problems yesterday, which I do think it wasn't really like they at the time it was like, oh, they did a terrible job. They didn't. It's hard to hand off when two people are like crossing, like, just unfortunate. Like, and that's the other thing about part of these relays is, look, some of it's just random. It's extremely hard when you're running in a 4x1 to do the relay. 4x4 is normally a little bit easier, but if you're right next to each other, it's hard. And I asked him, I said, they were very aware. They're like, look, there was a lot of hate of us. A lot of people were just like, U.S. sucks, blah, blah, blah. He's like, I liked what he said. He's like, I want to represent this country, and doubt me. Don't doubt me. He was very like emphatic, like I'm a better, whatever. And I said, well, some people were saying, well, one questioning why you were on the leg. You've only broken 45 once in your life, and there's video showing that it looks like the head relay coach, Daryl Woodson might be your personal coach. Is that true? And he didn't deny it. He said, there's no proof of that. Number one, and then like number two, I don't really care. But we reached out to USATF. I don't know why they just don't admit that, yes, the coach is his personal coach. And apparently that conflict of interest isn't a problem to them. So just admit it. Yes, he's my coach. And I can see both sides of this. Like historically, they haven't wanted the person, like the personal coaches have been mad about the relay coaches because they want influence and they can't, they're not in charge. So you could say, well, if the relay coach and the personal coach are the same, they know who's in shape. And, they're going to, if the workouts have been going good, they're going to put them on there. But you could also say, well, they might put their own people on there. So I'm for transparency. If the coach wants to put his own guy on there, okay. Did prove almost costly. I guess they got away with it. But the guy had the slowest split of the day. 45.0 is not very good when that's a running start. So like the opening leg was like 44.8. That's significantly faster. So 45.0 is more like a 45.5 or 46. It's not a very good split, to be honest.
Right. Now he was going off 5 hours sleep. Like none of the splits were like crazy fast, but it was the slowest one. And my other point from yesterday is if you have Vernon Norwood running the second leg, or even Caleb McRae or Ja'Cory Patterson, I'm not sure the U.S. is in that position with Zambia. They're probably ahead of Zambia and not involved in the fray there. I think in terms of the way Smith handled that exchange, he said, look, I knew I had to sort of back off and let them hand off first. Like I didn't want to do anything to risk getting us disqualified. So I think in the heat of the moment, okay, he handled it all right. And then, he knew they had been impeded. And so he didn't totally panic or lose his cool there. At the same time, I'm not sure the U.S. would have been in that position had he not been running. And I think that's
a good point because we saw the vast difference in how much just being in the front and having a clean exchange makes. Yesterday, with a lot of traffic and botched handoff, they ran 301. Today, on very little sleep, in the morning, they run 258. And it's hard to compare times with the final team because the final team was running in a downpour. But the final team didn't even run. They ran what?
I thought they ran 257,
yeah.
Right?
Not even that much faster. So, it's just kind of bizarre. Fun. I mean, controversy is good to me, but I just feel like if this was another sport or if this was another country, it would be front page news. It would be front page news.
Yeah.
If Femke Bowl, they'd done this, it would be front page news. All right. It is getting late, folks. I wish I had some AGZ with me. Sleep supplement. They've been stepped up and have been sponsoring this. It's gonna work. You drink it. It's a melatonin-free sleep supplement formula designed to improve your sleep quality. Formulated to support your body's natural rhythm and not override it. Easy to absorb ingredients. Check it out today. AGZ. All right, John. People in the chat. What else do we need to talk about? Well, I think some people are a little bit suspicious of Odira because where was she? Well, Jordan Hunter-Bell came on late in life. And there's another runner that ran today that came on late in life. Sebastian Sawe. He's quite good. In case you didn't watch it, he dominated the Berlin Marathon. Honestly, this run may not get some of the love that it deserves, but we have an article up on the homepage about it. He ran 2:02, either 15 or 16. We have written down both of those times.
Should be 16. I'm sorry, the initial headline was incorrect.
And look, he won a major by almost 4 minutes. Japan's Akira Osaka was 2:06.14. So It was mid-70s at the start. That's hot as hell. He still went out in 60 minutes. You went. The women's winning time was 2:21. There was like 7 women in this field that had broken 2:20. They went out in like 69 and they all blew up. Or not blew up, they all slowed down. Whereas this guy's going out in 60. The rabbits couldn't even stay with him for 25K. He was ahead of the rabbits before 25K. And is insane. Like, this guy is insane at the marathon. And you say, oh, he's Kenya. He came on late in life. He's a doper. I don't think so. I don't think so. What he did before this meet was remarkable. He said, I'm tired of people doubting me. His coach told John, he's like, I've never had anyone like this. And they agreed, like, we'll have the AIU test us 25 times between Berlin, out of competition, like almost every day. So
in the 2 months before Berlin.
Either these people have the craziest drug they can detect, or they're absolutely emphatic, confident that he's clean. And then he goes out and runs this race in this heat. This is wild. And major props up. I mean, major props up. These dopers, these cheaters, you don't know what to believe. But you got to believe if the very best can be clean, then it gives you hope for everybody else. I remember talking to a Kenyan guy, one of these Kenyan Americans back in the day, right when the Kenyan doping started. And I'm like, oh, man, you know, if the C teamer is doping, what does that mean about the A teamer? He goes, no, I've heard Kipchoge's clean. That makes me believe that I can be good, being clean. So that's what you want. You want proof. You'll never know proof. You can never prove that you're clean, but you can try your best to do something like this. So that was amazing.
What does this tell you, though, Robert, about what time he could run? Because normally when you see someone go out too hard, he went through on world record pace 60-16. Normally when it's hot, they just totally blow up and crater, and there's like a really bad 5K. He just gradually slowed down, but 202.16, that's almost his personal best. His PB is 202.05. This was the fastest time in the world this year. He's also got the number 2 time in the world from London. Never run slower than 202 in his 3 career marathons, which he's won all of them. Valencia, London, Berlin. I'm just looking at the women's time. That was the slowest women's time that won Berlin since 2013. I'd have to think the conditions is worth like a minute minimum if you're running the 70s the whole way. And you go out a little hard. What do you think? You don't think a minute with no
more?
Okay, yeah, I said minimum. So, which is nuts because a minute off of that is 201.16. That's Kipchoge and Kiptum territory. No, those are the only guys who go faster than that. And if this guy stays healthy, you put him in Valencia or Chicago or Berlin next year in good weather, I think we could see a world record. And it's crazy because we thought Kiptum's mark was so far out there. It was nuts that he hit that one. But now we've got Sawe. And I mean, who knows what the world record? Maybe John Curry, he's going for it in Chicago. Maybe he can get it. But this run was sensational. And to run 202, I think the Berlin press release afterwards was calling it a heat world record. No one's run this fast in that kind of weather. But yeah, we need to remember that he did this. This was far from ideal conditions for running his best. He went out aggressively, no rabbiting help, and still from lost 20K and still runs 202.16.
That world record's tough, let's be honest. But we've never seen a start to a marathon career since Kiptum. I think this is the second best start. I mean, we've got a box up in the article we have up on the homepage. I mean, Kipchoge was first, second, and first in his 2 races, 205, 204, 205. That was pre-super shoes. But he lost one of those races. Now it took a world record to beat him. But this guy's got 3 marathons, all under 202.30. All wins. Valencia, London, Berlin. Like, it doesn't get much better than that. Now, John Career better win in Chicago. Otherwise, this guy's it's always definitely the number one. But they're different runners. I mean, Career's proven he can win a hilly course and a flat course. But, kept him 201.53, 201.25, 2 flat 35. That's the best 3-race marathon career to start. I would say this is second best.
That's the best 3-race stretch anyone's had in a marathon.
Yeah, but to start your career is insane. So it's exciting to have Sawe doing so well. It's exciting to have him doing the drug testing. And it's been an exciting world. We don't have time tonight to put the whole thing in perspective. And on the regular pod, I don't know when we'll do it. John's going to be doing some sightseeing in Japan. I'm going to be heading back in the morning, but put it all in perspective. But look, at some level, we came in with huge expectations for the U.S. men in the mid-distance and distances. I was like, look, we could get a medal in every single event. We could theoretically, there's a guy in every event that could win it. And then we didn't have any medals until tonight, and then Hocker did it. So I wonder what we had the over-under on the pod about medals for men. But
we had like 2.5. Who had Hocker on the fantasy team? Because whoever had that.
But so we had it
2.5
is the over-under. But if Hocker, you see this run tonight, it's hard to think that he wouldn't have medaled in the 1500 he'd been in there.
Yeah, he was asked about. I did ask him about that, and he's like, "Look, well, of course, I think I could have won, but he didn't watch the race, and he did give credit to the guys. He's like, look, I think I could have won, but I'll never know that. Like, they ran good races out there. Like,
well, John lied. He did watch the race, but he didn't watch it live. So pat yourself on the back. If you watch the race live, you're more of a track fan than Cole Hocker. No, I don't know. I mean, I was wondering, like, how do they watch? Like, they just.
I don't think Donovan Brazier still has watched the 800-meter final from 2021.
Although I don't. That's why I went to the stadium this morning. I was trying to figure out how to get it going on a VPN. I couldn't get the Japanese TV on, so I was like, screw it, I'm just going to go to the stadium and watch it. So it may have been just been hard to figure out, like, his Netflix or whatever didn't work there.
Okay. Well, thanks for tuning in, everyone. Fantastic World Championships. Thanks for everyone for listening throughout the week. And to our Let's Run Supporters Club members who met up in Tokyo, the meetup was amazing. Can't wait to do it again. We'll do it in Budapest next year, World Ultimate Championships. That was really fun meeting you guys. Thank you, everyone who left a comment or asked a question. I like having the discussion, and our fans are really brilliant. Often they will mention stuff that we haven't even thought about. So thank you for interacting. And
those of you that join the Supporters Club, let's run. Come to subscribe. Yeah, join the Supporters Club. Come on, guys. We've been staying up till 5 a.m. every night working. Plane didn't pay for itself. We need some support. We did not mention championship record for the women. Sydney ran well again. U.S. women are, I mean, yeah, we probably should have, but the U.S. women's 4x4 is like almost unchallengeable, right?
Yeah.
So.
Anyways. All right. Good night from Tokyo, everyone. Sayonara.
We got a guy from Brazil listening.